What's going on, everybody? You can call me Kennerz, and welcome to another episode of PolyJAMourous series where I talk about music that I usually like but occasionally don't. And for today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at the most hated band on the internet, and that is Nickelback. So just jumping straight into the history, Nickelback started back in 1995 in Hannah, Alberta, Canada. Originally, they were a cover band called Village Idiot that consisted of brothers Chad and Mike Kroger, their cousin Brandon, and their friend Ryan Peake. They cover bands like Led Zeppelin and Metallica, and didn't stay Village Idiot for long. Now, I don't know what prompted the name change for Nickelback, but I do know that it originated from Mike's job at Starbucks. One thing he would frequently say to customers is, "Here's your Nickelback," and I guess something about that just stuck, and they decided to change the name from Village Idiot to Nickelback. In 1996, the band would release 2 records, the first one being a 7-track EP called Hersher, and the second one being a full-length album called Curb. In 1997, the band went through their first lineup change where they had to replace their drummer, who was their cousin Brandon, and he would be replaced with Mitch Gendone. Mitch didn't last too awful long because he just simply was not meant for the road. Based on a video that I saw with the guys, Mitch was a very talented drummer, but for some reason his skin was just acting very negatively to the cold, and they were just looking at him and they're like, "Bro, like, you can't do this. You are not meant for the road." So they ended up replacing him with their next drummer, Mr. Ryan Vickedal, in 1998, and he would be their next drummer for a while. Keep that in mind. So after this original lineup change, within the next couple of years, Nickelback would begin recognized. So Mr. Ron Berman, who was an A&R for Roadrunner Records, would get sent one of Nickelback's albums from one of his West Coast scouts, and as soon as he heard the record, he knew he had to go check them out. So he went all the way to Vancouver to hear them live, and the second he heard State of Men, he knew The second he heard Leader of Men, he knew it was going to be a smash hit, and he had to get these guys signed. For the next 3 months, he would end up spending God knows how much energy in order to convince his bosses to sign Nickelback to the record company. And fortunately, in 1999, his efforts would pay off when Nickelback got signed on to Roadrunner Records and EMI. After getting signed on to Roadrunner Records, they would re-release their second album, The State, in 2000. And in 2001 would, I would say, be the start of an incredibly successful career. So in 2001, Chad ended up going through a big-ass study session, looking at every single song on the radio and dissecting it piece by piece to figure out what made it radio-worthy and what made it so successful. Chad credits this study session to the success of their 2002 breakthrough single, How You Remind Me. He said that this was incredibly successful because of its catchy hooks and the universal, relatable theme of romantic relationships. Who does not love How You Remind Me? Also, just a quick little fun fact I want to throw in here about How You Remind Me. Avril Lavigne actually ended up covering it. I believe it was a bonus track on her self-titled record, and that is an incredible cover. I love it. Just throw that in there. Anywho, after the success of How You Remind Me, they would release another incredibly successful single, which was Hero, featuring the former Saliva frontman, Mr. Josie Scott, and this was for the Spider-Man movie, like the OG with Tobey Maguire. Of course, with a lot of success, you will also get a lot of hate. And in 2003, this is when the Nickelback hate train started. Unfortunately, I cannot remember this guy's last name to save my freaking life, but back in 2003, a comedian by the name of Brian ended up making a joke about Nickelback that would start probably one of the biggest hate trains ever. He made a joke saying that bad music, I will have to insert some bullshit censorship here for, because heaven forbid YouTube, like the word that also means to, somebody. But Brian ended up making this joke that said something like, bad music might make people violent, but Nickelback just makes me want to Nickelback. And just something about that started quite possibly one of the longest running hate trains ever. That, is still going on to this day. Because, nothing says these guys suck like selling millions of records and selling out God knows how many shows. So the band would continue to, do their thing for the next couple of years, but in January of 2005, they would go through one more lineup change. The guys ended up firing Ryan Vickedal because they didn't feel his heart was really in the band anymore, and this started a whole royalty dispute. Now, I'd like to say I checked a few different things and I saw for sure that Chad sued Vicodol for something. I remember seeing something that said allegedly Ryan Vicodol started this whole thing with the lawsuits and Chad was just countersuing. So I don't know if Chad started it or he was countersuing. So Ryan Vicodol may or may not have put out an actual lawsuit to Chad, but regardless, Chad did end up suing Ryan Vicodol for his royalty rights and any royalties that he had made January 2005 and after. He wanted to sue him for that money. Hope that makes sense. I feel like I phrased that weird. What else is new? So Ryan ended up getting kicked out of the band and he ended up being replaced with former Three Doors Down drummer Mr. Daniel Adair, and ever since 2005, Nickelback has had those four guys. Chad as the vocalist and the lead guitar, you have Ryan Peake as the rhythm guitarist, Mike as the bassist, and then Daniel on the drums. Throughout their now 30-year career, which is kind of crazy to say. Throughout their 30-year career, Nickelback has released, I believe, 10 albums up to this point, with their latest one being Get Rollin' back in 2022. They have won about 70 awards, been nominated for twice as many, and they were also inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame in 2023. They didn't think their spot in the Hall of Fame was necessarily deserved, but they were honored regardless. However, looking at some of the work that they've put in and just based on what I saw of them through the videos that I watched, they just really seem like a good bunch of guys who have really worked to get to where they are, and I honestly respect it, and so I would argue it in fact is deserved. So moving on to the history, Dark Horse is the album that we're checking out, which I don't think I said that before. Yeah, but you guys can read the title, it's fine. Dark Horse was their 6th album, and it was released after the uber successful All the Right Reasons, which included hit singles such as Rockstar and Photograph. And the album consisted of 11 tracks, almost all of which end up being singles. I'm not fucking kidding. I was surprised to see that almost the whole album consisted of singles. But I also found it really funny. I could give you all the singles, but at this point it would probably just be easier to tell you what wasn't. So the 3 tracks that were not singles were Next Go Round, Just to Get High, and Sex. The general sound of the album is honestly what you'd expect from Nickelback. It's got a grungy, hard rock sort of sound to it. Like I said, very Nickelback, which honestly I don't think is a bad thing. I like their sound. One thing I found really interesting was the single If Today Was Your Last Day was actually supposed to be the lead one, but they decided to scrap that at the last minute and made Gotta Be Somebody the lead single instead. The 2009 Juno Awards, Dark Horse ended up winning 3 out of the 5 nominations, including Rock Album of the Year. A few weeks after its North American release, it would end up earning its platinum status from the RIAA, and as a whole, the album had some mixed reviews. So I read online, just kind of like doing a general search for their history and stuff, that Metacritic gave it a mixed score. However, we all know how critics are. Usually the stuff that critics hate, the fans love, and vice versa. So I decided to go check it out myself and see if the reviews were really as mixed as the general score was saying, and I was surprised to find that for once fans and critics agreed. The reviews were mixed. So I have the exact numbers right here for how many different kinds of reviews there were. The numbers for Dark Horse were 84 positive reviews, 14 mixed, and 92 negative. Got a few of the reviews here. I'm going to start off with the positive reviews. Dylan D said, I originally gave it an 8, but because of the criminal underrating this album received, I'll give it a 10. Easily the group's best work so far. I'm loving the fact that they tried something different. Chris L said, Nickelback delivers yet again. The disc is exactly what you expect. The first 2 songs are in your face and blow your doors off. It is sometimes comical, sometimes touching, and always fun. These guys rock. And Bar0918 says, an album full of fun and reliability. It entertains right from the beginning, mixing up uplifting songs, then toning back down to emotional expressions. The negative, however. Jake H said, I used to be a fan, but they have become so completely unoriginal. Just sad. Brendan P says, maybe the most unoriginal, tackiest, and most boring bands out there? Definitely maybe. And Mike F, I think the real problem is just sheer repetitive, boring music. And I know I'm not the first to say it, but the themes they explore in this album, like sex and drugs and stuff, have been explored by other and better bands and have been expressed with far greater artistic merit. I think Chad and his band of meathead musicians need to pack it up and hang up their guitars for the sake of humanity. And then I decided to include this mixed one from Sputnik Music, who just summed it up to say, Dark Horse lacks the innovation of Nickelback's previous efforts, but keeps the fans interested with some shocking twists. And I also wanted to include the way they describe the opening track, Something in Your Mouth, because I honestly just find their description pretty funny. It says, the opening track and pervertedly named Something in Your Mouth is sex education without the hot and horny teacher explaining the details. Instead, you get a guide called Chad Kroger. I don't know about y'all, I just found that funny. So that is kind of the sum up of Dark Horse. So moving on to my favorite tracks, starting off with number 1, which is Next Go Round. The reason why I put Next Go Round at number 1, I like that's a heavy enough song, but it's not like too awfully heavy, which in general I wouldn't care about, but I bring that up because I think the weight of the song matches the speed really well. It's just, melodically speaking, I think it's a balanced track, but you know, I'm not a professional, so what the hell do I know? However, the thing that kind of puts it at the top is the lyrics, because I think this song is fucking hilarious. To sum it up, the lyrics are just exaggerated, ridiculous, horny dad rock is the best way to sum up the lyrics. I mean, for God's sake, like, my favorite line out of this whole song is in the second verse, and it's slap John Deere across my ass and ride me up and down the lawn. Oh, that line kills me every time I hear it. I mean, this song in general is just ridiculous. Like I said, it's just exaggerated, ridiculous, horny dad rock, but it just puts a smile on my face. I think it is so damn funny. Number 2, I would have to give to Gotta Be Somebody. And the reason why I put Gotta Be Somebody at number 2 is the melody to me not only has a certain gentleness to it that I just absolutely love, but along with the gentleness, there is a certain power to it that the melody alone can convey. And I think the power within Gotta Be Somebody is definitely emphasized by Chad's voice, because he does have a pretty powerful voice, I would say. So it does a really good job of, like I've kind of said, conveying the emotion in a powerful way. I think the melody really fits the lyrics of it, because I think it really speaks to a very human part of us. Now, I feel like I can live under a rock or be uncultured sometimes, so please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think in general it's pretty safe to say that the vast majority of people want to find that other person. They want to find the only person who can be more of a best friend than their best friend, their person of mutual weirdness. I did not come up with that term. I would like to give credit to some random person on the internet many years ago. But we want to find that person of mutual weirdness, our complement, or our completion, whatever you want to refer to this other person as. And Gotta Be Somebody, I think, really speaks to that human part of us about finding that person, because the lyrics talk about, hey, maybe I could be this kind of person for somebody else. I put in number 2 just because I think the song is absolutely beautiful and, like I said, speaks to something just so human. And number 3, last but not least, I have to give this to Burn It to the Ground. It's just a badass rock and roll track that you just have to headbang to. The melody's badass, the lyrics are, you know, very strong and rebellious and just really having an I don't give a fuck attitude. I'm gonna do what I want, and I just think it's absolutely amazing. I love it. I heard this song for the first time on the Transformers 2 soundtrack many years ago, and I've just loved it ever since, and yeah, kicks ass. So I think that is all I have to say for Dark Horse. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Of course, as always, if you have any other music recommendations, please let me know in the comments below. I'm always down to check out new stuff. And yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Later.